Good morning. I welcome you back again to Defining Moments of Essencology. I'm your host facilitator, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. And again, Essencology is the study of the essential essence of man. It deals with man as a trichotomic being, and it bespeaks of the interaction and the integration of these components of man that cause specific behavior. Basically, we talk about the somatological or the physiology, the body. Then we talk about the nephe시ology, or what psychologists call the psyche or the psyche, the Greek terminology. And then finally, the pneumaticological or the spiritual aspect. And so man is composed of body, soul, and spirit. And each of these contingent principles brings something to the table concerning the behavior of man. Let's jump right in. I want to today continue with the concept that we dealt with a few days ago that speaks of the Archeoprincipium of man. And I want to clear up some things because sometimes we just don't have enough to really give all of the pertinent information within this span of time. And so what I want to talk about is Archeoprincipium. Archeoprincipium, again, it's composed of two words. And the confusion may come in when I talked about last segment where principium can be first, and it can talk about a first pattern. And so when we talk about archeo can really have two meanings. One term, archeo, or the first, or the top, or the chief. This is where we get the concept of archon that deals with archangels, the very first pattern. Then we come to the word archeo that can deal with archaeology, or the study of the customs of man. But from the Latin perspective, we want to deal with Archeoprincipium as a collective of the first principium, principles or patterns of the archaeological studies of man. And so Archeoprincipium then can be a branch of Essencology in and of itself, or a terminology that expresses where an individual goes through the pursuit of understanding first principles concerning man, his culture, his behavior, his nature, his societal norms, his societal obligations, and then the obligations of society to the Creator. Again, one of the most important considerations of Essencology is that we see Essencology from the point of view of the creationist point of view. And we utilize biblical terminology to get us to understand that man is more than a collective of synapses and glia cells and chemical, electrical, biophysical operations. Man is more than algorithms. He's more than a living machine. He is a living individual that operates throughout the organic living machine. And these principles revealed to us when we began to really examine man from the scope of being a tripartisan or a trichotomic being, we come to understand that there are many components that can truly begin to impact behavior. And many of those components, because they are not deemed to be relative or deemed to be accurate or even existent, many of those components are ignored. And because these opponents or exponents are ignored, we in many cases do not understand the intricate balance that is within man. The intricate balance of a living soul that is integrated within the confines of a physiological tool or vessel by which this personage begins to manifest its behavior, begins to glean from the senses, and begins to reveal its volitional desires as well through the body. And so when we deal with Archeoprincipium, in Essencology, again, it is a term that is unique to the field of the study of the trichotomic being of man. And these principles then deal with what was God's original pattern of principles for the first man, the first civilization. What was the first pattern for man? His behavior, his position, his relationship with one another, his relationship with God, and his relationship with everything that he was brought to have control and that he was brought to have authority over. Again, the concept of Archeoprincipium comes from Genesis 1 and 26. The scripture tells us that God said, "Let us make man in our own image, after our own likeness, and let him have dominion." And so we talk about then from this pattern of dominion, this pattern of behavior, this pattern of position, that in many cases, because design will always mirror purpose, and purpose comes from design. In other words, something has been designed for a purpose. Essencology holds that man as well was designed for a purpose. Again, when we talk about Archeoprincipium, we have to, again, line it up in accordance to some of the evolutionary principles and theories. If evolution is correct, then there is no divine purpose and there is no absolute purpose for man. Man becomes a drifting organism seeking to discover, seeking to, as the origin of the species says, trying to survive as the fittest. And what this does evolutionarily, from the principles of evolution, it contains us within the ramifications or the borders of constantly being in conflict. Because if it deals with the evolutionary theory of the survival of the fittest, then that means someone is always vying to be the fittest. You can never know what is the fittest unless there is confrontation. In the animal kingdom, it is embedded within them to always fight for supremacy and fight to become the alpha. Only the alpha has the rights to mate, because nature finds a way of trying to make the gene selection and the next generation the strongest that they can be. And so locked within the animal kingdom and locked within the behavioral patterns of the animal kingdom is this selective process where they seek to consistently battle for supremacy, because the innate systemic mating ritual within the female and the male is that if the strongest male mates with them, they will have the strongest next generation or offspring that can survive. If we are to say then that mankind moves through the evolutionary process, then are we also adapting the racial inequalities that come with this belief system? This belief system gave rise to eugenics that was founded upon the ideal that only the favored species and only the strongest species have the right to control, to rule, and to exert their volitional decrees upon all other races, all other species. And what it produced from a societal point of view was a movement that believed, and whether or not we believe, there are many different conversations concerning cognitive dissonance, in that they did not truly believe it, but they had to appease the guilt or the disharmony that they felt as it gave rise to them conquering and sometimes murdering many other people for the sake of their cognitive explorations. But if we agree with this, then what follows next? Does the right of survival and control of all mankind go to those who deem themselves to be more proficient, stronger, more intelligent? And keep in mind, all of these things are based upon someone's assessment. And that assessment really very seldom has anyone else connected to that assessment except for those who are doing the assessment. Therefore, Archeoprincipium, it is the pattern of life, the pattern of living, and the pattern of behavior that God so deemed to be the proper or the appropriate methodology. And it was this pattern that God brought man into. It was this pattern that produced, in many cases, the ethical stance, the ethical values, and the system of values for man as he related to his fellow man, as he related to God, and as he related to the societal norms. And so we thank you for coming with us again, joining us in Defining Moments of Essencology. I am your host facilitator, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and I say to you again that God reigns, Jesus is Lord, and Jesus is coming back again. Until next time, God bless you.